So thank you first for doing this and for inviting me. I think we can't understand the current situation without appreciating that, acknowledging that Okinawa was essentially conquered by the United States. After what the Japanese had done to the Okinawan people, the U.S. added yet more disaster, pain, death, and land seizures and more. And to understand that, as the former U.S. Consul General in Okinawa, in Naha, told me and others a couple of years ago, the U.S. views the whole island of Okinawa as a U.S. military base. So, this is the situation in which the Okinawan people find themselves, basically in an environment of U.S. military colonialism that's now in its fourth generation. As you said, the U.S. military priority right now is preparing for a total war against China. All other military priorities for the United States are secondary to this. And for this, the United States is preparing to spend hundreds of billions of dollars more. As we saw, the first foreign head of state to be welcomed to the United States by the Biden administration was Prime Minister Suga, then followed by Prime Minister Moon. This has been part of Biden's efforts to rally, increase, reinforce the U.S. military alliance against China. And we've just seen with his trip to Europe with the G7, the meeting with the European Union and NATO, the idea has been to integrate more deeply the Europeans into this confrontation with China. Unfortunately, given its geographic location, its history between Japan and China, and its strategic location, the people of Okinawa in many ways are at the focal point of this confrontation. So I'm sorry to say that I don't expect it's going to get much easier, or that pressures on the Okinawan people are likely to be eased anytime soon. The one exception to this is that as China develops more aerial denial capabilities, including intermediate range missiles that can hit U.S. bases, what we will see is a change in the U.S. Military preparations and its doctrine for war against China. And in part, this means dispersing some of its forces and weaponry. So we may see some limited reductions in the military presence, maybe the number of Marines in Okinawa, but it's going to be tough for some time. The upside of this, of course, is that the Okinawan people's resistance to this, their affirmation of life and most fundamental values, is what's been keeping them going, keeping hope alive, and plays a role in reducing the danger of war. There has been an effort for some time to reduce the number of Marines present in Okinawa, primarily because they've been the greatest source of violence and sexual violence against the Okinawan people. And in doing this at the cost to the Japanese people, not the U.S. taxpayers, the primary idea has been to move some of them to Guam. Unfortunately, this is sort of changing the moving the chairs on the deck of the Titanic, because Guam too is a military colony of the United States. Its Chamorro people have been oppressed since the United States conquered Guam more than a century ago. We have one of the more shocking things for me is the omnipresence of U.S. forces in Okinawa. So you have one of the largest air bases in the world at Kadena, and it obviously would play a central role in a war against China. You have Futenma, which remains the most dangerous air base maybe in the world. Just to I was present one time at a nursery school, just yards away from a runway, and we have a history of accidents at Futenma, and with the level of resistance to the building of the base at Haneko, and the refusal of the Japanese government and the United States government to face the reality that that's a base that really can never be built because of the underlying problems with the seabed. That pressure goes on. It's not being built, and they're dragging their feet in terms of closing down Futenma. And then, of course, you have the other you've got naval bases and so on. So the island is a bastion for an imperial force. The last I knew, Okinawa was essentially on the other side of the world from the United States, and it doesn't have to do with the defense of the United States. It has much more to do with preserving U.S. dominance in Asia and the Pacific. Yes, I think I must have first gone in about 1985 or 87. Actually, the first time I've been aware of the U.S. military bases in the Philippines and the support for the Marcos dictatorship in order to hold on to those bases, and have been active in opposing them. I went to Japan, I think, for the first time about 1984, I believe it was 84, to the World Conference Against A&H Bombs. And in addition to the obvious impact of being in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, meeting with Hibakusha, absorbing really absorbing the pain and the reality of what had happened there, I was also profoundly struck by the speakers there, the movement representatives from Okinawa, and actually also from Guam. I was astounded to learn that the U.S. had more than 100 military bases and installations across Japan, obviously with the greatest concentration in Okinawa, and to learn about their impacts, whether it was crime and violence, the past presence of nuclear weapons, the environmental degradation, the violence and sexual violence that came with those forces. And it occurred to me that other people here in the U.S. movement were unaware of this, and that led me to do some deepening work around Okinawa and around U.S. foreign military bases and their positions as a whole. So I haven't been able to come to Okinawa as many times as I would like. I've just been profoundly moved by the culture of the nonviolent resistance. You can't see it here, but elsewhere in my study, I have a photograph I took of landowners sitting across from Okinawan courthouse, I guess, in Naha, basically calling for the return of their land. And each one of them had a headband on which was painted the slogan, "Life is a treasure." And that most fundamental recognition of what's important, what a gift life is really the heart of a movement trying to preserve respect for life and lives. Is I think exemplary for all of us. I also at one point was taken to I guess a compound you would call it, which had been built about 500 years ago in Okinawa, and which had played a very important role in Okinawan history and society. And I found myself becoming aware of how deeply rooted the Okinawan resistance is in Okinawan culture and history and identity. And I think that's really maybe its most powerful source of strength. I guess related to that is it's to both the idea that life is a treasure and to that history and culture is respect for the environment. the living environment, the animals, the fauna, the plant life with which Okinawa is rich, and the struggle against the bases has been not only a struggle for peace and not only a struggle for human rights, but also a struggle to preserve the environment, the foundation of life for all time in the future.